What if I told you that thousands of international students and workers could be forced to leave the country in 2026, not because they committed a crime, but because of new rule changes they didn't even know existed? Here's a disturbing fact. Most visa cancellations happen due to technical mistakes, not serious violations. Missing work hour limits, falling below attendance, a delayed document. One small error, and your entire future could disappear overnight. Governments are tightening immigration systems, increasing digital tracking, and speeding up visa cancellations and deportations. And the people most at risk? Students, temporary workers, and first-time immigrants who already live under constant pressure. What makes this truly terrifying is how quietly these rules are rolling out. No warnings, no second chances, just automated decisions and legal notices that arrive too late. So the real question is this: are these new 2026 rules about safety, or are they setting the stage for mass deportations? Stay with me. You need to hear this.
Number 10. Expanded deportation and removal powers. The most alarming change in the 2026 immigration rules is the expansion of deportation and removal powers, and this is the rule fueling widespread fears of mass deportations among students and workers. Under these new measures, authorities are being given faster, more streamlined power to cancel visas and issue removal orders with less warning and fewer appeals than before. What once took months can now happen in weeks or even days. For international students and temporary workers, this is especially dangerous. A minor violation, such as exceeding work hour limits, failing a compliance check, or losing employer sponsorship, can now trigger immediate enforcement action. In many cases, individuals may not even realize they're out of compliance until they receive a notice demanding they leave the country. There is often no time to fix the issue, no grace period, and limited access to legal remedies. What makes this rule even more unsettling is the growing reliance on automated systems and digital tracking. Decisions that once involved human judgment are increasingly handled by algorithms. A data mismatch, delayed update, or system error can wrongly flag someone as non-compliant, yet the burden falls entirely on the visa holder to prove otherwise, often while facing removal deadlines. This creates a climate of constant fear. Students worry that one bad semester could end their education. Workers fear that a sudden job loss could erase years of effort. Families live with uncertainty, never fully secure, even when they follow the rules. If this rule worries you, like this video so more people become aware. Subscribe to stay updated on immigration rule changes before they affect you. And comment below. Are you a student or worker, and how are these 2026 rules impacting your plans? Being informed could make the difference between staying and being forced to leave.
Number 9. Digital tracking and status monitoring. One of the most powerful, yet least visible changes in the 2026 immigration rules is the expansion of digital tracking and visa status monitoring. Governments are increasingly relying on centralized digital systems to track where students and workers live, study, work, and travel. On paper, this is meant to improve efficiency and prevent fraud. In reality, it places visa holders under constant surveillance, often without their full awareness. Under these new systems, universities, employers, banks, and even border agencies can feed data into a shared digital network. Class attendance, job hours, address changes, travel history, and financial activity may all be used to determine whether someone remains compliant. What makes this risky is that compliance is no longer evaluated occasionally, it's monitored in real time. For students, a drop in attendance due to illness, stress, or family emergencies can trigger automatic alerts. For workers, a change in job role, reduced hours, or delayed paperwork from an employer can flag their status. These systems often don't account for context. They don't understand personal hardship. they only see data. The most troubling part is the lack of human review. Many decisions are generated by algorithms, not immigration officers. A simple data mismatch or delayed update can wrongly mark someone as violating their visa conditions. By the time the individual becomes aware, the process may already be moving toward cancellation or removal. This shift creates a new reality where visa holders feel they must be perfect at all times. Every action, every delay, every change feels risky. Life becomes less about building a future and more about avoiding mistakes. In a system driven by constant monitoring, the margin for error disappears, and with it, the sense of stability that students and workers desperately need. Number 8. Increased border and travel screening. Another major change arriving with the 2026 rules is the expansion of border and travel screening, and this one catches many students and workers completely off guard. In the past, having a valid visa or permit was usually enough to re-enter the country after short travel. Now, that assumption no longer holds true. Border checks are becoming deeper, stricter, and more discretionary. Under these new measures, border officers are given broader authority to question travelers about their study status, employment details, finances, and long-term intentions. Even if your visa is valid, officers can deny entry if they believe you are not fully compliant or if they suspect future violations. This means that re-entry is no longer guaranteed. It's assessed case by case at the border. For international students, something as simple as carrying outdated enrollment documents or being between semesters can raise red flags. For workers, recent job changes, reduced hours, or employer issues can trigger additional questioning. In some cases, individuals are asked to hand over phones or documents to verify their activities. The stress of these encounters can be overwhelming, especially when the outcome depends on a single officer's judgment. What makes this rule especially unsettling is that intent matters as much as documentation. Officers may assess whether you believe you genuinely plan to follow visa conditions in the future. That subjective decision can override paperwork that appears perfectly valid. As a result, travel now carries real risk. A short trip home, a family emergency, or even a vacation can turn into a life-altering moment at the border. Students and workers are learning that crossing borders is no longer a routine process. It's a high-stakes evaluation where one conversation can determine whether you return to the life you've built or are forced to leave it behind.
Number 7. Limited pathways to permanent residency. One of the most discouraging changes in the 2026 immigration rules is the narrowing of pathways to permanent residency, especially for international students and temporary workers who planned to build long-term lives in the country. For years, the system encouraged people to study, work, gain experience, and eventually transition to permanent status. That promise now feels increasingly uncertain. Under the new rules, eligibility requirements for permanent residency are becoming stricter and more selective. Points thresholds are rising, approved occupations are narrowing, and timelines are becoming less predictable. Even highly skilled workers and graduates with local education may find themselves no longer meeting the criteria despite doing everything right. The goalposts keep moving, and many applicants are left scrambling to keep up. For students, this means that a degree alone is no longer enough. Fields that were once considered in demand may suddenly disappear from eligibility lists. For workers, years of experience may not matter if their occupation falls outside newly prioritized categories. This creates a constant sense of instability, where long-term planning becomes nearly impossible. The emotional toll is significant. People delay major life decisions, buying homes, starting families, investing in careers, because their future status remains uncertain.
Temporary visas stretch longer and longer, while permanent options shrink. Instead of integration, many feel trapped in immigration limbo, contributing to society without the security to fully belong. What makes this rule especially painful is the lack of transparency. Changes often arrive with little warning, leaving applicants feeling blindsided. The message, intentional or not, is clear. Temporary status may remain temporary indefinitely. For students and workers who invested time, money, and hope, the shrinking path to permanent residency feels less like a policy shift and more like a broken promise.
Number 6. Financial proof and bank record verification. Another major change under the 2026 immigration rules involves stricter financial proof and bank record verification. And this rule is creating anxiety for both international students and temporary workers. Governments are increasing scrutiny over whether visa holders truly have the financial stability to support themselves, not just at the time of application, but throughout their stay. Under these updated rules, authorities can request bank statements, transaction histories, and proof of funds at any point. It's no longer enough to show savings once and move on. Financial status is now treated as an ongoing condition of your visa. If your balance drops below required thresholds, even temporarily, it could raise red flags. Emergency expenses, tuition payments, medical bills, or family support back home can all suddenly become compliance risks. For students, this is especially stressful. Many rely on part-time work to cover living costs. Any delay in pay, unexpected expense, or change in working hours can quickly affect their account balance. Workers face similar pressure, particularly those in industries with fluctuating income or short-term contracts. What feels like normal financial ups and downs in real life may look like instability on paper. The most troubling aspect is that context often doesn't matter. Digital systems don't understand why money moved, they only see numbers. A temporary dip can be misinterpreted as an inability to support oneself, even if the situation is quickly resolved. This rule forces visa holders to live in a constant state of financial caution. Spending becomes stressful, helping family becomes risky. Even normal life decisions feel calculated. When your legal status depends on a bank balance that can change overnight, financial freedom disappears, replaced by fear that one unexpected expense could put your entire future at risk.
Number 5. Stronger employer sponsorship requirements. One of the most stressful changes in the 2026 immigration rules is the tightening of employer sponsorship requirements, a shift that places temporary workers in a highly vulnerable position. Under these new rules, employers are subject to stricter compliance checks, reporting obligations, and eligibility standards. While this is intended to prevent abuse of the system, it also means that workers are now directly affected by their employer's actions, even when they have done nothing wrong. For sponsored workers, employment is no longer just a job, it's the foundation of their legal status. If an employer fails an audit, delays paperwork, violates labor rules, or decides to shut down operations, the worker's visa can be immediately at risk. In some cases, losing a job doesn't just mean unemployment, it can mean losing the right to stay in the country altogether. What makes this rule especially dangerous is the lack of control workers have over employer compliance. A worker may follow every rule perfectly, yet still face visa cancellation because an employer missed a deadline or failed to meet updated sponsorship conditions. Switching employers is also becoming more difficult, with tighter approval processes and limited transition periods that leave little room for error. This change also affects workplace dynamics. Some workers feel pressured to tolerate poor conditions, unpaid overtime, or unfair treatment out of fear that complaining could jeopardize their sponsorship. When a visa is tied too closely to a single employer, power imbalances grow and worker protections weaken instead of strengthen. The emotional toll is heavy. Workers live with constant uncertainty, knowing that their future depends not only on their performance, but on decisions made far above their control. Under these new rules, employer sponsorship is no longer a pathway to stability. It's a fragile lifeline that can snap without warning, leaving workers scrambling to protect years of effort and sacrifice.
Number 4. Faster visa cancellation for non-compliance. One of the most frightening changes in the 2026 immigration rules is how quickly visas can now be canceled for non-compliance. In the past, most visa issues came with warnings, correction periods, or opportunities to explain mistakes. Under the new framework, those safety nets are shrinking fast. Authorities are moving toward immediate enforcement, where action comes first and explanations come later. What counts as non-compliance has also expanded. Missing a reporting deadline, falling slightly below required study loads, working a few extra hours, or failing to update an address on time can now trigger serious consequences. These are not criminal acts, they're administrative errors, often caused by stress, confusion, or lack of clear guidance. Yet the punishment can be severe: visa suspension or outright cancellation. The most dangerous part of this rule is the speed. Visa holders may receive an email or digital notice informing them that their status has been canceled, with limited time, sometimes days, to respond. Appeals are harder, deadlines are shorter, and in many cases, the burden of proof falls entirely on the individual to demonstrate compliance under pressure. This creates a constant state of anxiety. Students worry that one bad semester or delayed document could end their education. Workers fear that a small oversight could undo years of effort. Life becomes less about progress and more about avoiding mistakes. What makes this rule especially harsh is that it assumes perfect compliance in an imperfect world. People get sick, systems fail, employers delay paperwork, universities make errors. But the system leaves little room for human reality. When visas can be canceled faster than problems can be fixed, even those trying their best can find themselves suddenly out of status and out of options.
Number 3. Work hour limits and job type restrictions. Another critical change in the 2026 immigration rules involves stricter enforcement of work hour limits and job type restrictions, and this rule is catching many students and workers off guard. While limits on working hours have always existed, authorities are now monitoring them far more closely, leaving almost no margin for error. For international students, exceeding the permitted number of work hours, even by a small amount, can now be treated as a serious violation. Many students rely on part-time jobs to pay rent, tuition, and daily expenses. When shifts run late, schedules change, or employers miscalculate hours, students may unknowingly cross the limit. Under the new rules, intent doesn't matter. The system sees only numbers, not circumstances. Job type restrictions have also tightened. Visa holders are expected to work only in approved roles that align with their visa conditions. Taking on freelance work, gig jobs, or short-term side income, even temporarily, can be classified as unauthorized employment. This is especially risky in today's economy, where many people rely on flexible work to survive. For workers, switching roles within the same company or accepting additional responsibilities can now require prior approval. A promotion, department change, or temporary assignment might unintentionally violate visa conditions if not properly reported. What feels like career growth can quickly become a compliance issue. This rule creates a harsh reality. Survival choices can conflict with legal requirements. Students and workers are forced to choose between financial stability and immigration safety. Every shift worked, every task accepted, and every paycheck earned feels risky. When the system demands perfect compliance in an unpredictable job market, even responsible individuals can find themselves labeled as violators, not because they broke the law intentionally, but because they were trying to get by.
Number 2, attendance and enrollment verification for students. Another major change under the 2026 immigration rules targets student attendance and enrollment verification, and it's creating significant pressure for international students. Previously, schools reported attendance irregularly, and minor absences rarely had serious consequences. Under the new system, however, universities and colleges are required to continuously monitor attendance and enrollment status and report it directly to immigration authorities in real time. This means that falling below the required class attendance, dropping courses without proper authorization, or even delaying registration can trigger automated alerts. What used to be a minor academic issue can now escalate into a visa compliance problem, putting a student's legal status at immediate risk. Illness, family emergencies, or part-time work affecting class participation, all of these normal life events can suddenly be interpreted as non-compliance. The system relies heavily on digital tracking, leaving little room for context or explanation. Even if a student has valid reasons for missing classes, reporting delays or incomplete documentation can result in warnings, visa flags, or status reviews. In some cases, these alerts may feed directly into faster visa cancellation procedures. This rule fundamentally changes how students experience their education. Beyond learning, they now live under constant scrutiny, feeling pressured to attend every class, submit every document perfectly, and maintain enrollment status without disruption. Even minor deviations from the expected routine can have serious consequences, making academic life far more stressful and high stakes than ever before. Compliance is no longer just about following the rules. It's about surviving a system that leaves almost no margin for error.
Number 1, stricter visa compliance checks. The first and perhaps most critical rule under the 2026 immigration changes is the implementation of stricter visa compliance checks, a shift that impacts almost every international student and temporary worker. Unlike before, when minor mistakes were often overlooked or addressed with warnings, the new rules treat compliance with visa conditions as an ongoing, closely monitored obligation. Authorities now have the power to review academic records, work permits, and financial documentation at any time, with little prior notice. For students, this means that failing a course, reducing course load, or missing administrative deadlines can be flagged as a violation of visa conditions. Even minor delays in submitting official documents, updating addresses, or notifying authorities of changes can trigger alerts that feed into automated systems. Temporary workers face similar pressures. Working in an unauthorized job, exceeding work hours, or having gaps in employment documentation can now be considered serious non-compliance. What makes these checks especially stressful is the speed and automation involved. Many of these compliance verifications are now monitored digitally, with decisions partially driven by algorithms rather than human judgment. This leaves little room for explanation or context, and one small oversight can quickly escalate into warnings, visa suspension, or even deportation proceedings. The broader impact is a constant state of pressure. Visa holders must carefully track every aspect of their study, work, and financial life, knowing that any deviation could have severe consequences. Life becomes less about learning, working, or growing, and more about surviving a system designed to catch mistakes before they can be corrected. The stakes are higher than ever, and the margin for error has all but disappeared. The 2026 immigration rules aren't just minor updates. They represent a major shift in how students and temporary workers are monitored, controlled, and held accountable. From stricter visa compliance and attendance verification to digital tracking and expanded deportation powers, these changes could affect your future, education, and livelihood. Staying informed is no longer optional, it's essential. Like this video if it opened your eyes, subscribe for the latest updates on immigration rules, and comment below which rule worries you the most and how will it affect your plans.
Being aware could be the difference between staying and being forced to leave.